Boy, it's dark outside. And here I am in the dark, looking for a grave that's long lost and forgotten. I know I shouldn't be doing this, but I've got to find out if what I read is true. After the Great War of 2051, and after the NAR was able to take control of the world government, a lot of new laws came into being. One of them outlawed and banished all records of grave sucking. What is grave sucking? Well, most of you don't know about it because it's been outlawed for so many years, but do you remember Elijah? Oh, that's right. Not many of you really read the Bible anymore, do you? I know we don't really need it that much. We've got the apostles and prophets receiving fresh revelation from the Holy Spirit. Anyway, in the Bible, Elijah was a powerful prophet. I think he could have been as powerful, almost as powerful as Benny Hinn, who lived over 100 years ago, as we understand and as we read from our books. And he was physically taken to heaven, and his servant Elisha wanted 2 times as much power. And he asked Elijah if he could get that. And Elisha said, well, if you see me going to heaven, sure, you can have it. And sure enough, Elisha saw him going to heaven. And as he went to heaven, Elijah dropped his cloak. And Elisha took that cloak, the mantle, picked it up, and he became 2 times as powerful. Some say as powerful. I don't know, though, because the books that we have really tell us so many powerful things about Benny. So I don't know if Elisha was anywhere near as powerful as Benny. Years later, after Elisha died, he was buried, and these men were running away from trouble, and one of them died, and they threw the dead guy into the place that Elisha was buried, and the bones of Elisha gave life to the corpse that just touched him. So the spirit of Elisha never left his body, even though he was dead. And that spirit raised up the dead corpse. Well, over 100 years ago, servants of the apostle Bill Johnson read these stories in the Bible, because they used to read the Bible a little bit more than we do today. And they realized that when powerful servants of God die, their powerful spirits don't just leave them, but stay with the dead bodies, waiting to be claimed by those who receive the spirits from the graves. And what they did back then, over 100 years ago, was they knelt over the grave, or they laid on top of it, and they prayed to receive the spirit of that dead person. And they called it grave sucking. They called it grave soaking, and they called it mantle grabbing. But the problem is they didn't do it right. And even though at first they felt something, eventually bad things would happen to these people. For example, people at Smith Wigglesworth grave soaking eventually turned into angry people, randomly kicking strangers and punching them in the teeth, commanding devils to come out. And they started a lot of fights and even killed people. One group was soaking a spirit of AAL, and they immediately turned into raging alcoholics. And people didn't know what to think about this. But thankfully, Prophet Jim Baker explained what happened. He explained that when you don't soak properly, demons get a hold of you. After the Great War, the NAR made it illegal to grave soak, and they took the bodies from the graves of these people and they moved them to secret places. Well, I've been doing a lot of reading lately and a lot of studying, and I think I know where things went wrong and why they didn't get the right spirit from these dead people. And I also got a map. And on this map, I know where many of God's generals lie. So I'm going to tell you all about the first one I'm going to go visit, because I'm going to, as I mentioned, do something illegal. And I'm going to go to a gravesite, and I'm going to properly soak. When Benny Hinn was young, he had a powerful vision. And in his vision, he saw Catherine Kuhlman. And she was glowing. And she said, I have these golden plates to give to you. And I'm going to give you stones to read what they say. And he had a diviner's hat that he used with those stones, and he was able to read from the golden plates. And the golden plates said that if you are wealthy, God has blessed you. And if you are poor, you have sin in your lives that you need to deal with. And since the Great War, this has become doctrine and truth. Now, after that vision, Benny Hinn became a powerful healer. And everyone who touched him or came into his presence were healed. He would walk into hospitals, and doctors and nurses would get angry at him because he took away all their business. People would get up from their beds totally cured. If he walked into morgues, everybody would be completely raised from the dead. Now, even though he was so powerful in healing, our theology today comes from his third wife, Paula White Kane Smith Nelson Hinn. And she revealed how that God uses divorce, and that divorce is encouraged in the Bible. Anyway, according to my map, the grave site should be very close. It's up there. I'm sure it's right up there. Oh my gosh. Okay. Here's the story. In the past, people have always done this wrong. They don't know how properly to do this, and because they don't properly suck the spirits out, they get the wrong stuff going on. So today, I'm going to, for the first time, I'm going to be able to suck the spirit out of the famous Benny Hinn. This is better than I thought. Oh my gosh. It's his head. One day, I will be a super prophet. Wow! Groovy! All right, so here I am 1 year later. I'm getting kind of disappointed. My conscience is starting to bother me. I got rich. I started prophesying with things that I felt. And none of the prophecies ever came true, but people loved it. And they gave me money. And I learned to convince people that when they gave to me, I'd always call it my ministry, of course, because people don't like giving to a person. They like giving to ministry and to God. And I convinced them that when they gave to me, they gave to God. And I found it extremely satisfying. And I love the feeling of getting rich. And I love the feeling of having so much authority and power and clout and feeling so superior to others. It was so awesome. But now all that's fading away, and my conscience is starting to bother me. And having a conscience is not good for this line of business. So really the only thing I figured out that I can do is just find another grave to soak.
Moose, Ghost.